Hello.
Hey Niels. Hey everyone.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Let's wait a couple of minutes for more people to join.
Hi everyone.
Hey
Hello.
Jordan.
Hi.
So we have Yogesh with us. So we can start with 5G updates from Yogesh.
Yeah, so thank you. Let me just share my screen. You are able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. 1 second. Is it
Now it's visible.
Too? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, here are the quick updates. So we have started working on the stability and the enhancements which we have planned for 1.9. And we are focusing specifically on the limitations which we have posted in 1.8, whatever the known issues. And the CI/CD is ongoing. And there were a few traffic related stability test cases we are doing. So here are the quick updates. We have closed a couple of Zenham tasks. Basically, there were some issues we have seen regarding this and negative scenarios where we have PLM and mismatch test cases which were failing. and some 1.8 related issues were there for CI/CD. We closed them. These are the 3 PRs which we have updated. So 1.4.7. So we are improving the logging because we have seen that a few of the cases, especially the negative cases, there are some scope of improving the logging. So that has been introduced as part of this. As part of 13974, the QS flow descriptors were not getting updated properly when AMP is sending those to the UE. So that issue has been fixed. And as part of 14309, there were some registration and periodic registration failures. I think what we have seen from EV and UEs and from spiral testing that there are many fields which can be present in periodic registration and might be absent. So you sometimes you might have to deduce from your existing infra. So we have handled all these scenarios as part of this. On the testing front, the regular CI/CD and whatever features have been added as part of 1.8 that's going on. That's pretty much it from the 5G side. Any questions? Shubham, back to you. Let's start the share.
Thanks, Yogesh. So we can move on to the next agenda, which is Access Gateway update from Jan.
Yeah, just a second. You should see my browser, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the TSC meeting on Monday, I presented this proposal to build the Docker containers with Bazel, which is linked here. And yeah, it would be good if you take a look and add your comments there, so we can address them. And I think Jordan, you have already written a comment there. And
Yeah, correct. I
hope
already did my comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I can get around to answering them later today. And
Any questions for Jan? Yeah. I have one question. We are also planning to build Access Gateway Docker images that will be Red Hat based, maybe Fedora, maybe Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So did you got any chance to look into this?
yes, so I quickly tried it out, and it also works with Bazel. So when I tried it out,
nice.
I was facing some difficulties, but these were not really Bazel related. These were more about the availability of packages on these Red Hat UBIs.
Yeah. So today we had a call with the Red Hat team, and we were discussing about licensing, that if we use Red Hat Enterprise Linux base image, there can be licensing issues. So they pointed that we can use Fedora, so we don't have to worry about the licensing. So we are still considering what's the best option for us.
So what would it imply to use Fedora? Like on which environments would be based on Fedora then?
So we are talking about Fedora Docker images specifically, and they have their own clusters like OpenShift and other things. We will be using images there. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's it. Any more questions for you? Okay, then we can move on to the next orchestrator update from Sebastian.
Hi everyone. Yeah, just a quick update from me, but let me share my screen. So yeah, we finished some changes to the NMS frontend, where we've added basically the 5G configuration that could only be done manually before. So now if you go to the gateway config page, there's a new table that allows you to change the AMF settings and yeah, basically do all the 5G related configuration of the gateway from the front end. And it works the same as the other tables, so things are transmitted via mconfig.
This is merged on master branch?
Yeah, it's merged on master.
Okay, great.
Right.
Any questions as well?
There are no questions. Then I think next is Marco.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will just grab the screen. Okay, you should see my my browser with the Magma documentation.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to show you three little features that we've been working on. For the first one, I've shown you the Magma documentation on the left-hand side, 1.8, and on the right-hand side on master. And this is the documentation for the HEW LT intake tests. And what we changed is we had a lot of refactoring on the make files, and we enabled a feature that we are able to run individual tests now really space separated in contrast to before. So we changed this command here. Instead of intake test, it is called now selected tests. And you're able to run it with the tests flag and then just run them or to post them here space separated in, because this was not possible earlier. And if you want, I can show you. So I have here two tests, the attach detach and the attach detach with the static IP. And they should now both run continuously, and then the test should just stop. So the first one passed, and now the second one also looks good, and the test suite ends. So this is already also merged on master. Then you may noticed that there was an update to the CI dashboard. We added a column here to denote the tests that are run for the HEW networking features. This test is or was previously integrated into the tests for the LT intake test suite. This was removed, and it now has a dedicated test workflow based on Bazel as well. Also, there's a new LT intake test showing up here. This test is based on the Debian file, which is created after each commit to master. And so we hope that this test is closer to any production we would have, and therefore the tests are more reliable than doing these on the development machines. And as a third feature, I would like to show you this here. This is the site of the GitHub Actions, and there was some renaming. Here on the left-hand side, you can see all the workflows that are running, and we now have a new naming convention. You see here the workflows start with the component, then it's the specific verb, what this workflow is doing, and then a further description. There's also a segment in the contribution code on the Magma wiki, which specifies this new convention. And please note that we just renamed them, so the history of all the GitHub workflows is still present. Are there any questions to what I presented to you? Okay, if not, then let's continue. I guess with Niels for the Bazel updates, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
Hello, everybody. I will share my screen. So two things I want to update. The first one is the AGW unit test coverage. This is now existing in a new workflow based on Bazel. So we have this AGW generate coverage workflow that works very stable. This does the C++ test coverage and Python test coverage on the AGW. Just a little bit context where this is coming from. Before, the coverage was calculated in the AGW workflow, which does a lot. These parts were removed. Some parts were done with make, some parts already with Bazel. And this was extracted into the new AGW coverage workflow. And there we now have the C++ code coverage and the Python coverage. And same as before, the coverage is uploaded to CodeCuff, where we monitored that we upload the same data. So same as before. So for the end result, nothing changed. You can follow the coverage of Magma on CodeCuff. The second thing I want to show is the load tests. We have a couple of load tests in Magma that are currently not executed in CI. You can find them in this folder here. So LTE Gateway Python load tests. There are a couple. They are now Baselified as well, so they can be executed with Bazel. Actually, not all tests. It was not possible to execute all tests with make, so it needed a little bit of rework, but it is documented now, and there is a convenient script run load tests where all these tests are built with Bazel, but they are not executed with Bazel because they have an integration test character. So then after the build, the artifacts are executed. So it's very similar to the make mechanics before. Yeah, but a follow-up should be created so they are executed in CI, at least for regression. It might not make sense to execute them for load test results because the GitHub runners are not really stable in that sense in my opinion, they are not able to reproduce reproducible results. That's what I wanted to show. Any questions for these two parts? Then I will give over to Jan for other basic.
Sorry, I was sorry, I was chasing the microphone. I had a question for the code coverage.
Yes.
How accurate is the code coverage calculation? Is it accurate calculation? Because I was told that it's not really the most accurate information.
I actually can't tell you about the very details. I don't look inside actually what is covered and what not. For the accuracy, if you mean if there are a lot of changes for the different commits, this was changed recently independent of this issue what I just presented by Fritz. Mm-hmm. And before there was a lot of what is it called, changes here. And the issue here was that this is uploaded in so-called flags. You can imagine it as tags for CodeCuff. I don't know how much you know about CodeCuff. Yes. Here are the flags. And before the change from Fritz, these flags, in some cases, we didn't calculate the coverage because there was no change, for example, on the Python code. Then we didn't calculate it. And the change was that now CodeCuff remembers from the first coverage, and if the flag is not uploaded with one or updated with one commit, then the one before is taken. And by this,
the old one.
Yeah. The old one, and by this, this became much more stable.
Okay, so now basically the figure are stable, but we still don't know how much is reflecting the reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at least I didn't do a deep dive analysis.
No.
Everything is covered.
As I said, I mean, I got this information, so I wanted to just verify since you've mentioned this. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Of course.
It's maybe interesting to note that the integration test, so the code that is covered via the integration test, this is not reflected in the code coverage. I think it's basically only looking at the unit tests and telling you basically the unit test coverage.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I will stop sharing, and next one is Jan again.
So what we did is that we created a Python IDE environment with Bazel. So we already have all those targets like the generated protofiles that we built with Bazel and some dependencies that we install with Bazel. And now we basically put this together and created an environment so that in your IDE you can select an interpreter from that environment and you will have completion and navigation for those dependencies. And basically the command to create this environment is like this. So you would say Bazel run devtools python-env and then specify a target path. And this target path is also now the default Python interpreter environment in VS Code or in the dev container. And unfortunately, this tool here, it cannot update an existing environment. So usually the way you would invoke it is you would delete any existing previous ones and then run it again. And if you run this the first time, this takes a while because it has to build all the profiles and stuff. But once it is cached, you can just run it like that. It will show some warnings, unfortunately, because this rule that we are using still isn't perfect. But yeah, now we have generated this environment and we can now sort of click on all these things. For example, this here is a generated Python file from the Protos. And we can just navigate to those places. We can also, for some custom-built external dependencies, we can also click on them. It was a bit hacky because we're basically linking to TMP, but this also works nicely. So for Rio, for example, we could click on ether types and we would go to the right place. And yes, and of course we can also obviously like navigate to our own Python code and sort of to the standard environment. Any questions with that? Okay, then I will stop sharing. And I think that was the last topic, right? Oh yeah, there was this dev container thing. Just on a side note, while working with the dev container, we found that there were like around 2 gigabytes of unused files, and the reason basically was that there were some remove commands in the Docker file that assumed a certain working directory and then silently failed when they were not in the right directory. And basically we just fixed those remove commands.
Great. So we still have some time left if there are any other topics anyone would like to bring up.
Let me ask the group if people would prefer to talk about the OpenSSL CVE that was very well known this week today or in the TSC meeting on Monday.
If it needs to be presented in front of TSC, I think they should be there because yeah, if we have to make some decisions, then yeah, TSC should be there.
I don't think there are any larger decisions. It's really purely a, technical conversation at this point.
Yeah, then you can share it like right now.
Okay.
I think it would be interesting.
If anybody doesn't have access to this ticket, let me know. I'll add you to the repo. I'm going to post the issue number here. All right, so as a lot of people will have heard, sorry, I just did something weird to the window. Come on, here we go. There was a OpenSSL exploit announced this week, or a patch, and it turned out to be a little less critical than initially announced. It's high severity, but rather than critical, so it's not heartbleed level. The gist of the problem is that if you can fake a part of a certificate, you can create a buffer overrun. The scope of the buffer overrun is limited. For the most part, you can't pick arbitrary bytes to insert into memory. But you can force the buffer overrun by forcing the target of the attack to execute a malicious, particularly crafted certificate. So for us, the simple answer to what everything boils down to is when we're a TLS client receiving, connecting to a server, can we be tricked into connecting to a server that has a malicious certificate, right? Because it's the crafting of the certificate that enables the attack. So the first question is it possible for us to be tricked into connecting to a malicious server? I'd like to open that up for discussion. And the other question is the inverse. When we're acting as a server, which I believe is only in the enode BD component, but I'm not sure. There is the inverse problem that a malicious client can present a particularly crafted certificate. So I want to invite discussion on whether or not these attacks are even possible. And let's start there.
So behind the attack, I want to understand what damage can one do. Let's say if we have an orchestrator deployed and access gateway deployed, and someone is attacking our servers, what will they take out of it?
At the least, they can do a denial of service. They can crash.
Yeah, that is one.
Will they be able to execute arbitrary code?
I don't believe so. No, they can insert dots into memory, or they can force execution at a arbitrary location that is past allocated memory, but where the contents of that memory are not set by the attacker.
And
okay,
so
it will be far-fetched thing to do it will be far-fetched thing to do the real attack. In this case, it will be just denial of service.
I believe that is right. And that's why this is high severity rather than critical.
Yeah. So, and this issue has been fixed if we use the latest OpenSSL for generating the certificates.
Correct. That opens the question of where our version of the OpenSSL library is coming from. And I believe it's coming from the image. Is that correct?
So with Magma, we create a lot of certificates, and we have a lot of different ways. We have Python libraries. We have a cert manager for creating it. We have bash scripts for creating it. And all of these things are using different versions. And mostly we are using the version that is released with our operating system. Let's say we are using Ubuntu. So we might be having old version. But yeah, if this comes as a security update for the latest Ubuntu and the person is updating regularly, then yeah, they might get the fixed issue, the fixed version.
The fixed version, by the way, is 3.0.7.
Okay.
So I wonder if we might actually be protected by our Ubuntu being pretty old. I think it still uses OpenSSL 1 and not 3. But I haven't checked all OpenSSL versions that we might have wherever.
So what we can do in this case, yeah, we can update our libraries that are generating code. That is one. Other than that, we can just send an awareness. We can just use the latest packages for generating these certificates.
So the first step is update libraries. The second step is, I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, second step is we can just update in the documentation. So in
Yeah.
our deployment documentation, we have a step where we use the script for generating these certificates. And just before that, we can add a note that use the latest version, like version 3.0.6. So you don't get this kind of like whatever issues.
That is a good, clean and simple fix. And returning to the architectural question, it sounds like, coming down to these questions, it sounds like nobody on this call is really sure what the answers to these questions are. They're not really certain that we couldn't be manipulated into connecting to a malicious server. Agree?
I mean, I'm certain that number 2 can happen. Because a client can connect with the malicious certificate. It will happen on the orchestrator. I'm not sure how much it might happen on AGW, but it can happen on the orchestrator definitely.
Okay.
If you have malicious certificate and you go to the orchestrator, there you go. You might be also able to take over the DNS if you do DNS poisoning and then the AGW, because AGW connects to the orchestrator.
Yeah.
And divert AGW to connect to a malicious server. Then this one would also be a third type of attack where you can misuse this.
Yeah.
And if we have the orchestrator access, then we can run anything on our access gateway. We can run our, let's say, mining, for example, or any other script. We can directly run those.
So it sounds like we do have a high enough risk that we should address the issue. We shouldn't just skip it. It is real. And the two updates, the two fixes are going to be in the documentation. We'll advise deployers to use the latest OpenSSL or an OpenSSL outside of the vulnerable range. And number 2, we'll update our own libraries in our generators, and we'll need to identify which builds those are. So I guess that's the last question in this conversation, is which of our various builders, image creators, and so on need to be addressed. Or maybe the ticket should be review CI scripts to identify which ones are going to be including any version of OpenSSL, and then patch those.
I just had a quick look into our Ansible scripts. I don't see OpenSSL pinned anywhere, so the newest version should be installed. But I don't think we need to add this to the documentation. I think this is expected, that users of Magma keep their packages up to date. But for the Docker images that we deliver, I agree that we should check if we have created an image with an older version or an affected version.
I mean, I would agree with Sebastian for the virtual machines. They are mostly running on Ubuntu 20, which means it is not OpenSSL 3. And so these, I mean, as you said, Niels, the versions are not pinned, but on Ubuntu 20, the default version is still OpenSSL 1. So that's a plus. But I, of course, cannot, I don't know about the Docker images, yeah.
I think the task is to verify that and see if there are any images that slip out. I will write, I'll write a comment on this item and then forward it to, is it a DevOps project? Who do we think would be the natural owner?
Yeah, it comes into DevOps only. So we can verify.
Unless anybody has anything to add, I would consider this complete.
Okay, thank you, Lucas. So we still have some time left if anyone would like to bring something up. If not, thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.